Hey, what's happening, everybody? It is Sunday and it is the Lord's Day. That being said, there's a lesson for us today that I have for you. You know, in today's times, we see something that's been happening since the beginning of time. But Jesus even spoke about this in Luke chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, and that is hypocrisy. And he was warning the multitude that he was talking to beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Well, what was that leaven? Well, that was their doctrine. That was their attitude. They would tell you to do right, but they wouldn't do the same. How often do we have this same problem today? Sure, so many can tell us to do right, but they don't necessarily follow their own advice. But without further ado, let us get into the lesson. But keep in mind, we don't like to see people's actions not match up with their words, and we surely want to make sure that we practice what we profess. Let's get into it. Again, Luke chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Let's jump on into it. It says here, "In the meantime, when they were gathered together, an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode upon one another, he began to say unto his disciples, First of all, beware ye of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy." Well, let's stop right here. Now, granted, when Jesus was speaking, it makes mention that there were so many people that they trode upon each other. They were walking on each other. But how many Sundays do we see that? Do we see the church being that crowded that there's standing room only? People are stepping on each other. No, we typically don't. But that's the attitude we need to have, because we need to be making sure that our friends go, but most of all, we go. Because it's not going to do us any good to tell somebody to go to church or that they need to be in church and we don't show up ourselves. I mean, after all, what kind of example are we leaving? And that's a key part here. You can't be an example to anybody else about what they should be doing if you're not doing it yourself. Because oftentimes, the best sermon is the life that we live. How are we going to influence the world to be better or to do better if we're not doing the same thing ourselves? You see, if I can tell you what's right, I should be doing what's right. Unfortunately, a lot of times there's so many examples of people in the church doing that very thing, and we've got to get rid of that. Whether it be an attitude, whether it be the words we speak to others, what good does it do for us to tell somebody you need to speak to people in a kind manner or treat somebody else as we would want to be treated when we don't practice those same things? That's why we always have to make sure that our profession matches our practice. It's just that simple, folks. I know it sounds good, but we need to make sure that it is good by the example of who we are matches who we say that we are. Yeah, there's so many people that want to use the word fake. Well, it's easy for someone to call you fake if you don't do what you say that you're going to do. It's easy for somebody to say that you're fake when you don't follow the advice or the example you're trying to tell them they need to be. I can't help it, but you got to say it. You got to stand on the truth, and you got to let people know. But if you're going to do that, make sure your steps are ordered in the same fashion. Let's go a little bit further. It says that, beware ye the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Verse 2, "For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known." Let's stop here. We're going to park here for a minute. We often feel like we can hide something from other human beings. Sure, you may hide it for a little while, but it being a secret is only temporary. And the thing that you got to keep in mind, no matter what you hide or attempt to hide from mankind, you will never hide from God. Why is that? He sees all, he knows all, and he's everywhere all the time. I know that a lot of people think, well, I'll do this right quick. Nobody will even know about it. Or I'll say this and nobody will ever know about it. Sadly, they're mistaken. And if you're guilty of that, you are mistaken. Because whatever you said at any given point in time to another human, it can get back out. And when it does, it's going to come right back to the source. Somebody's going to hear it, and somebody is going to tell it until it gets back to the person that actually spoke it. And if it was you, it's going to come right back to you. Now, I know that this is a hard subject for some. I know that this is not necessarily a fun sermon or a fun lesson, but it's a much needed lesson. That's why we must guard our mouths. We must guard our tongues, because those things we're going to have to give an account of. My grandmother always used to tell me this little story, and about how you say something to one person and they tell it to somebody else. It never gets back like you originally said it. And it illustrated a very valuable lesson to me, as I hope it will you. The less you say, the less you've got to give account of. I know that it's a nice little story, but it's the God's honest truth. If you don't want it repeated, don't say it, and for sure don't do it, because somebody will see it or hear it. And when they do, it can be repeated. On the other hand, this leaven of the Pharisees was simply, like I said, their doctrine and their attitudes. How great you can either have a positive influence or you can have a negative influence. And another little story that we all know. They always tell us, one bad apple can spoil the whole barrel. Well, that's true. One sin in the camp can cost so many people. Whatever you do affects somebody else, whether you realize that or not. Whatever you do, you may think it's small, but one sin can contaminate a whole church. It can ruin a whole family. Just one sin. Now, sure, that can be sins of the tongue, sins of your speech. It can be an action that you take. You can even have a sinful attitude. But that can destroy so much around you. But now, let's flip the coin over. Imagine one positive word, one good work. It can change someone else's life. Would you not rather be remembered for the good things you do rather than being the sins you've committed? Because after all, people will always remember. People will always, so there'll be always somebody to remind you of what you've done in the past. Why don't you, or why don't all of us make a conscious effort to just simply being positive, a positive influence on others, a way of life rather than a sinful life? Let's go on forward. Verse 3. It says, therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in the darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear in closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops. Now, how about that? Now, those are words of Christ in red. So you can guarantee he knew what he was talking about. Guaranteed. If you or I don't want it repeated, like I said, don't say it or do it. But whatever you do today, understand this before I let you go. This is the last point. Before I go, I want you to understand something. Make sure that whatever you do today, you're prepared to live with tomorrow. Make sure the words you spoke today, you can stand to hear tomorrow. because there's a great probability that you're going to hear it or see it again. And then again, it may not be tomorrow. It may not be next week. It may not be next month. It might not even be next year. But understand this. Whatever you do and whatever you say, it'll come back to you. I hope this has helped somebody. And I hope to see y'all on Tune Up Tuesday. Everybody be blessed. And again, thank you again for everybody that supports me. Like, share. And I hope this has helped somebody. Everybody be encouraged and be blessed. Talk to y'all later.